Bonjour and welcome to DMC's Introduction to Knitting. The aim of this video is to explain what these techniques are, give you an overview of the beautiful pieces you can achieve, as well as an introduction to the basic supplies you need to get started. Knitting uses two-pointed needles and yarn to create fabric. There are lots of different knitting stitches you can use to add texture and shaping to the pieces you make, which can be stitched together to create clothes, toys and homewares. Knitting can be really relaxing and has been shown to have mental health benefits. It's very portable, so you can take it wherever you go. These are the basic supplies you will need. Knitting needles. These come in lots of different thicknesses and lengths. There are even some double pointed and circular needles for knitting tubes. Needles can be metal, plastic, wooden or bamboo. The size of the needle you choose will change the look and tension of the knitted fabric you create. For example, if I knit 17 rows of 12 stitches on this Natura XL chunky weight yarn on size 8 to 9 needles, which are the needles recommended on the ball band, I get a completely different result if I choose a much larger needle size. Here are the same 17 rows and 12 stitches of the same yarn knitted on a much bigger needle, which gives you a loose loopy effect. The same yarn knitted on smaller needles will give you a denser fabric. Yarn. There are lots of different types of yarn, both natural and man-made fibres. Probably the most common are wool, acrylic and cotton. Yarn comes in different thicknesses and weights. On the ball band you can find lots of helpful information about the yarn, what it is made of, what size needles you need, the length of the yarn, the gauge of the yarn, washing instructions and also a dye lot number. A knitting gauge is the number of stitches and rows needed to make a square of knitted fabric. For example, this Natura XL yarn has a gauge that shows up if you knit 17 rows of 12 stitches, you should end up with a 10 by 10 centimetre square. This is important because it helps you work out if the tension of your knitting enables you to knit a square of the same gauge. If not, then your project may turn out bigger or smaller than you planned. But don't worry, there are ways to adjust your gauge, for example, changing the size of your needle you use. The dye lot number is important because sometimes the colour of yarn can change slightly between dye lots, so when you're making a project with more than one ball of yarn, it's a good idea to choose balls of yarn that all have the same dye lot number. Sharp scissors will help you cut yarn easily. You will need your pattern, tape measure so you can check the size of your knitting to ensure a good fit, stitch markers. These are little loops you can use to help you keep track of where you are in your pattern. Let's get started. If you are just starting out, it's a good idea to start with a really simple pattern with a basic square or rectangular shape like a scarf or blanket. There are several ways to cast on, but this method gives a neat edge. Holding the needle with a slip knot in your left hand, insert the tip of the right hand needle through the slip knot stitch so the left needle is crossed over the right needle. Wrap the yarn around the right hand needle and bring the tip of the right hand needle under the left and catch the loop on the needle. Insert the tip of the left hand needle into the stitch on the right and slide your right hand needle off. You now have 2 stitches on your left needle. Repeat this until you have your correct amount of stitches. Now you are ready to start knitting. To make a knit stitch, hold the needle with the stitches you have cast on in your left hand and your empty needle in your right hand. Insert the tip of the right needle into the first stitch upwards from front to back. The needles will be crossed over from left to right. With your right hand needle, wrap the yarn from the ball behind and then between the 2 needles. Bring the tip of the right needle under the left needle and catch the loop. Slide the stitch off the left needle and onto the right needle. Repeat this across your row. Once you have completed your knitting, you will need to cast off. For your final row, Knit the first 2 stitches. Then using the tip of the left needle, lift the first stitch up and over the second stitch and the tip of the right needle, and now you will only have 1 stitch on your right needle. Knit 1 more stitch, so you have 2 stitches, and repeat. Continue working like this until you get to the end of the row and 1 stitch remains. Remove your needle, cut the yarn, leaving about a 15cm tail, and pass the cut end of yarn through the last stitch. And pull to tighten. You will now need to weave in the ends of your yarn into your knitting using a tapestry or darning needle. This will finish off your knitting and stop it from unravelling. We hope you have enjoyed this introduction to knitting. If you'd like to get stitching, we have lots of individual stitch and technique tutorials to help you. DMC also sell kits that will provide you with everything you need to get started. Au revoir!